The question is, what happens when I go overseas? The question about whether you are an Australian tax resident or not is a complicated one, and it will depend on the facts in the cases. And it will depend on where you go and whether you intend to come back. But broadly, if you go overseas and you retain a house, family, bank account, super fund here, and you were born Australian, it's pretty difficult to lose your Australian tax residency. So your income offshore may very well be taxable here, even though you are not physically here. So just going offshore doesn't take you entirely out of the ATO's grasp. It's likely for most of the places where people go that there will be a tax treaty, which means if you go and work in London and you pay UK taxes, that's a final tax and you won't pay tax on it here. If you go to a tax-free jurisdiction where your income is exempt, you might find you have to pay Australian tax on it here. That is definitely an area that you should use a experienced accountant who's used to dealing with expats. That doesn't necessarily mean one of the big 4 or big 6 accounting firms. You'll often get a better service because you'll get a more senior person at a smaller firm. But it's like choosing a financial advisor or a mortgage broker. You really want to pick someone who looks after people like you. There's no point in choosing a accounting firm that deals mostly with multinationals or deals mostly with companies when you're trying to do a personal tax return. And expat tax is a really complicated, it's a hornet's nest of complexity because it depends on the facts of the case, what you leave behind, what your connections with Australia, whether you acquired your Australian domicile by birth or whether you were a temporary visitor or not so temporary visitor, and what you leave behind and what you take with you. So is the intent to set up a new life somewhere else, which will usually involve severing most of your ties here. So things like retaining membership of the Australian Institute of Engineers, for example, could be a sufficient tie to keep you a resident. But hashtag not financial advice, well, certainly not tax advice. That's something that needs to be looked at on the facts of the circumstance. And getting that advice will not be cheap. So think about that.